Hey, what's up? It's Jim, and this is Movie Crap. This is my semi-bi-weekly show where I talk about movie news and theory and stuff that I would like to talk about. And today I want to talk about Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, or more specifically, Miles Morales and his cinematic future. And first off, I think one of the smartest things they did about putting Miles Morales in Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse is differentiating it from the other Spider-Man franchise Sony has going on at the time. One is live action in the MCU, has Peter Parker. The other is animated, is in its own universe, and has Miles Morales. Now, obviously there's a Peter Parker character in both. I'm talking about more of the headline character, and it's a way to differentiate people. Like, audiences will know this is that Spider-Man, this is the other Spider-Man, back and forth and so forth. But Miles Morales has always been a character that people wanted on the big screen almost immediately. It felt like right after he was created, people were already talking about when is he going to be on the big screen, talking about him being, even in the Andrew Garfield series, I believe, is when people started talking about him being in the film, because he was not really around when the Tobey Maguire, Sam Raimi films were. And with the Mark Webb, Andrew Garfield films, they talked about it, but those didn't develop further enough. And now with Into the Spider-Verse, they're able to bring him to the big screen. I think one of the biggest things that this film does is it starts to introduce audiences to Miles Morales. Because Spider-Man's one of the most recognizable superheroes ever. Like, I would say most people say the big three are Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman as being superheroes that everyone, literally everyone, knows. And I'd put Spider-Man in there. Characters who forever, you know, before the movies things blew up, almost everyone knows them. Everybody knows at least their secret identity, who they are, so forth. You can say Iron Man and Captain America and various other people have come up to that point as well since then. But I think Spider-Man, for a variety of different age groups, is someone that everyone knows. And they know him as Peter Parker. So bringing in a different Spider-Man, this isn't like that they're all racist, it's a little bit. But it's not entirely that everyone's racist, that they don't want to see Miles Morales. It's because that is the Spider-Man that they are used to, and they need to get audiences and the mainstream public kind of accepting of Miles Morales, just as a character, basically, to understand how he is different from Peter Parker, and have them want to see a Spider-Man movie with a different character, and to see a Spider-Man movie where someone's playing Spider-Man who's not Peter Parker. And that's effectively what they're doing with this. They're sort of playing the long game, which is what you have to do when you're introducing new ideas and new versions of these characters. If you notice the differences between the Jack Nicholson Joker and the Heath Ledger Joker, sure, you can say Killing Joke came out like a year before Batman came out, and Tim Burton, I think, was aware of it and so forth, or even like Batman Year One, and there was a different version of Joker kind of about. But honestly, most audiences who are going to see Tim Burton's Batman hadn't read a comic in a long time, and if they had, they didn't really know what the Joker had become at that point. So you don't really have that Joker. You see more Cesar Romero and what Nicholson's makeup and, you know, the classic Joker. Certainly he's like darker and things like that, but he's not that 80s comic Joker as much. They say he was influenced by it, but it's kind of more of a softer introduction to that. Whereas when you get to Heath Ledger's Joker, Killing Joke has been out for a long time. People are reading more graphic novels. You can go and do that because that generation, who is now the prime ticket buying audience, who are like, you know, like 18 to 34 male or whatever, is more accustomed to that Joker. And Miles Morales is like certainly just too new. He's not even a decade old, so you really need to introduce him in such a way. And to introduce him, you really should be introducing him to younger audiences. Now, certainly some of these kids have probably seen him on the cartoon shows and may have read the comic books, but knowing comic book numbers and the ratings on Disney XD, so they're making kind of a big play at this, putting Miles Morales into the Spider-Verse, as well as Gwen Stacy, but that's like a whole other thing, really. They're kind of launching other characters in the Spider-Man universe and doing it with younger kids. Those younger kids will have an attachment to Miles Morales, and it'll let him actually maybe come into the live-action films eventually, or maybe he'll just be an animated thing, which, to be honest, I really wouldn't mind, but I understand that probably that's not their end game with this. They will eventually have a bunch of kids who grew up as 8-year-olds, and in the 2020s, when they're 18, they can do a live-action Miles Morales movie, because those kids will go, holy shit, I can't believe I finally get to see a live-action Miles Morales film. Certainly Sony's big move in this is they can have two Spider-Man franchises, which is pretty smart, but they're kind of doing a smart long game in in that because they're showing that there are changes in superheroes. Superhero films as a genre haven't been around long enough that there's too many characters you can really track that with. But to do something big like changing a protagonist, I think would be pretty monumental. And Spider-Man's such a major character, you really need to do it the right way. And Into the Spider-Verse, although it looks honestly absolutely amazing, it's one of my most anticipated films. Spider-Man leads himself so well to animation. If you've ever seen the Spectacular Spider-Man series, which is still maybe my favorite version of Spider-Man possibly, particularly how they dealt with the black suit and everything. It's just a character that would work so well in animation. With Miles Morales, it's going to mean a lot more to the 7-year-old kids and the younger kids who see it, because to them, this will be their Spider-Man. And I think that's going to be a really awesome thing to see kind of take shape over the next 10 years or so. Probably even more, possibly, depending on what Marvel is going to do with the Sony deal and all that stuff. Maybe shorter, but the idea that they're really trying to kind of introduce this character the right way. If they'd pushed him forward too much, which I think Sony sort of learned with that whole Ghostbusters thing, I think they're doing this in the right way, in that none of the reactions to Into the Spider-Verse were anything negative in terms of who Miles Morales is or anything like that. They're softly long gaming this whole character and introducing him the right way, and understand the importance of doing that. And obviously, with demographics being what they are and the growing demographics in movie theaters being more what are considered minorities in America, particularly African American and Latino audiences, and since Miles Morales is half African American, half Latino, it makes absolute sense that you'd want to kind of like build a character like that if you're doing that in the long term. I find this to be really interesting. I thought that's what they were doing this whole time, but I really think that is what they're doing, you know, because I'm not saying animation is for kids. Obviously, I watch animation, and I believe animation as a medium is undermined by that, absolutely. But at the same time, I get what they're doing and who animation is mainly aimed towards, and that's what this film is doing. It also looks like a really amazingly entertaining film, and I'm very excited for it, and I'm very excited to see Sony really do some kind of smart brand maintenance, and I hope they can continue it and successfully launch kind of one of the more successful and larger superheroes with a new persona. Is not something that anyone has really attempted to this point. You know, we're not having a Batman film where Batman is Dick Grayson. We're not having a Superman film where he's like some other person, maybe. I think it is very much a long game kind of studio controlled kind of thing, and they're doing it in an excellent way. It's a very smart move for them, and I think it'll actually maybe turn out, but that is what they're doing. They're trying to introduce the public, and specifically a new generation of moviegoers, to Miles Morales and get them excited for a new kind of Spider-Man, as well as launching an action animation franchise, which I think is actually really cool, and I'm very excited. So if you have seen the Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse trailer, or would like to talk about Miles Morales as a character and him being in this new movie, then comment below in the comments and subscribe if you would like to.